Right, in the second video on Player XG, we looked at the basics in the first one, so let's have a look at a little bit more of the sort of advanced features of the Player XG tool, right? So if I head over to the Player XG tool, first video we covered things like the data source, how we calculate it, the games that we cover, first goal scorer, 2+, 3+, DDHH. So the second video, I want to take a look here at particular edges and a little bit more of the advanced stuff, right? So tonight it's the UEFA Champions League final in about 28 minutes. And here we see Manchester City versus Inter. Starts in 22 minutes. We have some labels down here. We discussed this before. We've got Double Delight Hat-Trick Heaven, which is both pre-match and in-play. By the way, just heads up, when there's like a high-profile match that everyone's eyes are on, there's no value in the Double Delight Hat-Trick Heaven. That's just a common thing. It's just because, you know, the value tends to be when there's a lot of, like, fewer eyes, a lot of value spread around a lot more, 3 p.m. games on a Saturday, stuff like that. When it's Saturday night in May and there's only one match and there's only one DDHH match in the next week, you're not going to find anything. Just like that's just been a fact for like the traders are on it. But regardless, we see we've got DDHH, DDHH in play. We've got our scorecast. Critically here, we've got another column. Team news is confirmed. This could either say team news unconfirmed or it could say team news confirmed, right? So this is an API that we have feeding in to the Player XG model. We don't have it on every league. We don't have it on the Argentinian Primera Division. We don't have it on US Major League Soccer. We do have it on 10 leagues. And if you want to know what those leagues are, you can go into the hub and have a look. Off the top of my head, it's like Premiership, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A. You know, the top European leagues, a few more. It's not the Scottish Premiership and so forth and so on. Let's go into players and have a look at what Team News is doing for us, okay? So Man City, Inter. At the top now, we see something a little bit different to other games. We see the team news that's come through. We have an XG for the 10 outfield players for Manchester City. We always assign 0 XG for the goalkeeper and 10 players for Inter with 0 XG for the goalkeeper. Now, this could be unconfirmed. Now, unconfirmed is when we get team news through the API that it's a suspected team news, but it's not official. And you'll still see these tables up here, but they're not necessarily the starting players. Well, it's confirmed, this team news, as we saw, so we know these guys are starting. This gives us a little bit of a different edge. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to scroll down quite quickly because I want to show you what's going on in the table below. We have the game XG, the home XG, and the match XG. Then we have 20 outfield players. And everybody else that previously we saw with an XG has a label of either bench or not playing. And they have essentially been given 0 XG, so their AGS price is infinity, right? Their first goal scorer price is infinity, their 2+ is infinity, their 3+ is infinity. We do have prices on Betfair for these guys. I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole, of course, because they're completely skewed now that they're on the bench. They may come on in the 88th minute, and you don't want to be on AGS on a player that's coming on the 88th minute. And a lot of edges in football center around whether you are very confident before team news that a player is starting, and therefore you can bet on them. And that's not something we can give you. I mean, we can give you unconfirmed lineups, but that's kind of up to you. The edges really come after team news when we do know who is starting. So, I mean, these guys, if these prices are available, you want to be laying these. You want to be laying Julian Alvarez at 7.4 FGS. You definitely want to be laying him at 2.96 AGS. Whether or not anything would be taken or not, I don't know. But these guys are on the bench. You don't want to be backing them. You want to be laying them if you can. What we're left with then is 20 players with... it's the Champions League final. All of the data sources here are BFX. Not necessarily the case. A lot of defenders won't have a exchange price traded on smaller matches, but all 20 have here. And we know that the XG of these players have to sum up to the XG of their team. So Man City have 1.92. So if you take all of these Man City players, these have to sum up somewhere in the region of 1.92. It's not exactly 1.92 because defenders do score goals. How many goals did defenders score? Well, we have a field here where this is editable. We've done a historical analysis, and we know that 9.5% of goals are traditionally scored by substitutes. It does vary by competition. This is with 5 substitutes in a game, so we didn't look at the old school kind of way where you had 3 substitutes in a game. With 5 substitutes in a game, the default is 9.5. Do you think it's different? Do you think it's 12.5? You can change that. If you thought like 99% of goals were scored by substitutes, you can do that, which means that the outfield players are pretty much going to get none. Haaland's maybe going to get 0.01, and the rest are going to go for the substitutes. So you can either leave that as default. I mean, really, I never edit it, but if you think that this is a game where substitutes are going to score more goals, you can change that. So we take Man City's XG of 1.92, and we multiply that by 90.5%, because 9.5% will be scored by substitutes. And that leaves us with an XG that we can distribute amongst the players. And that gives us an edge. There's not a huge edge in this game because it's very, very efficient. What we can see here is that most players on the exchange are trading a little bit lower. Not much, though. Alonso's trading at 11. He should be 11.26 or maybe 11.5 because you have to jump in an increment there. Martinez is trading at 5.1. You really need 5.18, so that should be a lay. But none of these prices are so different that you would necessarily want to be jumping on them. I mean, even down at the outsider, Alessandro Bastoni, the fair price should be 60.04. The AGS price is 60. But if you take our prices of AGS, these AGS prices equate to these XGs. And these XGs equate to what the team's going to score. And this is a really decent edge. Now, in this game, it's very efficient. You don't see much difference. In another game, you might find that all of the outfield players are value bets to back. Because, quite simply, the exchange is trading at an incorrect price point. If you take the exchange and you sum up all of the AGS prices, you might get a higher XG than the sum of the team. And that means that, let's just, for example, say that Haaland was 2.4 here. Well, you back him. You can pretty much back any player in the team, because what happens generally is that if one player is plus EV to back for AGS, all players are. This is where the exchange can get it wrong in certain matches. Again, this is a bad match to show you. The Champions League final is very efficient, but we can find that the AGS prices for the starting 20 players on the pitch simply are too high on the exchange, and we can go there and we can back them. Perhaps if we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% on top of what we think the AGS price should be. So if the AGS price for Haaland was 2.4, that's a bet on the exchange. Sadly, it's 2.16. We make him 2.17, so whatever. You're not going to get much at the bookmaker, by the way. Bookmaker best price is 1.96. I think that includes a margin as well. We've got first goal scorer prices. Your headline goal scorers, now that these are normalized, tend to be lays, because that's what happens. The exchange professionals are taking advantage of recreational money. Recreational money has driven the BFX price down from first goal scorer for Haaland down to 3.8. Quite frankly, Haaland gets a lot of goals. He's not 3.8 to get the first goal. He's 4.69. If you were to do anything, I would lay it. In fact, most players are a lay. Akanji is a small back if you can get 75. Martinez is a small back if you can get 14, but very thin EV, 103%. Probably not what I'm playing at. I tend to try and look at 105, maybe even 110%. Things like that. Equally, 2+ and 3+ can be taken on the exchange if we can get more than 6.9 for 2+ for Haaland. If we can get more than 30.73 on 3+. I've had very good success, actually, on the 2+ market. 3+ tends to be quite high volatility, high variance. I mean, even for Haaland tonight, you're looking at 30-1. So, big odds to be betting at. But if the exchange market was empty, or, if 34, 36, 38 was available for Haaland, I would certainly be taking that. I've had a lot more success on 2+ than 3+, but that's probably down to sample size and the magnitude of odds. We can also combine into our decision making steaming and drifting, which we discussed about in the last video. In this, Haaland, Gundogan, Dzeko, Kalhangu, and Ake seem to be the steamers. Everyone else seems to be drifting a little bit. There was a lot of confidence in who was going to be starting in this game. We also have a Scorecast model. So the Scorecast, we have 4 different categories. Scorecast, over here. That's a player to score first in the match and a score. So you can score first in 1-0, 2-1, 4-1, whatever you want. You can change that. If I change that to 4-1, we see that Haaland score first and the game to finish 4-1 is 155.29. That's just built from first principles. We have an anytime Scorecast model. So, Haaland to score at any time in the match and the match to finish 2-1, 18.49. What's De Bruyne? I'm on this tonight. Kevin De Bruyne to score any time. I'm on him to score any time, and 1-0, 2-0, 2-1 or 3-1 will do for me in this match. William Hill actually online do these grouped score bets. So I took one of the groups at 1-0, 2-0 or 2-1 and the other one at 2-0, 2-1 or 3-1, meaning that if it's 2-1 or 3-1 and De Bruyne has got one of those goals, both bets will win for me. The Wincast is a summation of the correct scores. So Haaland to score first and Man City to win 5.52, or the draw or the away. I wonder what the away is. Haaland to score first and Inter to win 65.61. There you go. And the anytime Wincast, Haaland to score at any time and Manchester City to win is 2.71. Having these figures is a really powerful utilization of the player XG tool. This, as far as I know, is the only professional punter tool that will take the starting 11 and normalize the XG to force it to be equal to the team XG and the match XG, meaning that we know when the exchange prices are just completely out. And it does happen time on time. And it can be that every player is a lay, or it can be that every player is a back. So this is really very, very powerful and a good way to play the player XG tool, waiting to team news, seeing if the exchanges have got it wrong, and go and manipulate and take advantage of the exchange if you can. If you want to track some of these more advanced calculations, let's pop over to the Bet Builder, right? So I'm just going to open the Bet Builder in a new tab, and if I just pop over there, all of those statistics are available in the Bookie Bashing Lines Player XG. Champions League final. If I bring up Man City versus Inter tonight, all of the players there. Where's KDB? Kevin De Bruyne. There he is. So I've got a number of different stats over a number of different periods. I can look at him to score in the first half, second half, in the match, or in each half. I can look at him to have over goals, under goals, exactly goals, between goals, to score first, to score any time, which is really the same as over 0, but sometimes it's nice to have that in the list. To get double delight hat-trick heaven using our own in-house Bookie Bashing first goal scorer lines. To get double delight hat-trick heaven using Betfair Exchange first goal scorer lines. Some people prefer to use that. And here are the scorecasts down here. So I'm just going to have a look quickly at Anytime Scorecast. And Kevin De Bruyne to score first, as I discussed, 1-0, 2-0 or 2-1. 14.6. I managed to get 17.0 or 15.0, at William Hill earlier. So that's drifted slightly, but it's still a good value bet. I also had 2-0, 2-1, 3-1 at 15.0, 13.93. So I've got a little bit of value there. I can, of course, save that to my tracker. If this was earlier in the day, it's only a few minutes before kickoffs, there's probably no point in saving it to the tracker just now, but let's say I've got a runner or whatever, that's 15, send that to my private group, it's available online and shop, save that, and I can see I've got myself a 108.1% bet. Similarly, score first, he's 34.25. I've got some presets in here because sometimes the bookmaker, William Hill particularly, go player to score and both teams to score, player to score and Man City to win to 0, player to score and Man City to win and both teams to score. It's player to score first and Man City to win to 0, etc., etc. So there's some sort of built-in presets. I mean, really just Kevin De Bruyne to score first and Man City to win to 0. It's just the scorecast of 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, and 7-0 built in that automatically picks it up, and then, you know, give that a prettier title. It goes all the way up to 20-0, even though the scorecast grid is limited to 7-7. We had to do that for sort of UX reasons. So if you've got a crazy women's international game where the odds of maybe 8 goals for one particular team is reasonable, then this grid might be not too useful. But we made the deduction that that's so rare, you didn't need to see it. It was better just to have a good UX. If you did need to see it, you can expand the correct score grid to see those games with 8 goals or more. And pretty much pick up any single player. Of course, this is infinity because Brozovic plays for the opposing team. He may even be on the bench. I'm not entirely sure. So let's put in a goal for the other team. There you go. So the only scoreline that is actually applicable here is the 9-1, which is why it's 225 bazillion to 1 for Brozovic to score first and the result to be any of those results, because really all we're looking at is 9-1 for Manchester City. It's super powerful, this model. Going back to the game players page, because of this normalization, you can normalize the data before team news. If you saw in the player XG tool a label that said team news unconfirmed, that means that obviously we don't know for sure this is going to be the team news, but there has been enough suspicion that the API sent over an unconfirmed team news. And in this page here, I can't show you, but down here it would say these team news guys are not confirmed, and you would still see an XG for every single player. But if you would like to, you can normalize anyway to see what that would do to the AGS prices, or if I go back to standard, of every single player if this team news is right. And let's say you had full confidence that De Bruyne was going to score tonight. He was going to start tonight, and we saw that his normalized AGS was 4.73 and perhaps 5.6 was on the exchange. You have yourself there the ability to take advantage of the exchange and go and bet there. And of course, it's not just the exchange where this would be applicable. You can find these edges at bookmakers if you have enough time. Good bookmakers, of course, to look at are William Hill, because you can go into a William Hill, go to the SSBT and bet on there, which is precisely what I do. I kind of look at William Hill online, and then I will send people or go to shops myself and go and bet on them in shops on the SSBTs. So the team news really gives us a lot of power over the markets, for the simple reason that we know that our XG of all of our players in the starting lineup is going to sum to the XG of the game. And that means that any player, any exchange trading that is going on that is simply way too pessimistic or way too optimistic can be highlighted. If you want to see a blog about this, go into latest news. I picked this up for Ireland versus France a little bit of time ago. Here we see in March the 28th, 2023, laying AGS on the exchange, Ireland versus France. I did a little plot of what the fair odds were in red and what was going on at the exchange. They were all under. Quite simply, the exchange was trading AGS prices for these 20 players that summed to way higher than the XG of the match. And that meant that we could go in and we could pretty much lay every single player for value. Of course, it's not much fun laying Canati at 45.56. It's not much fun laying Coleman at 30. But if we can lay Mbappe, knowing that he's trading on the exchange at 2.04, and we know that he's 2.28, then we know that we've certainly got some value going on there. It's a lot more fun to back, and we do find these matches as well where the exchange is just pessimistic, and you can get some decent prices backing AGS and backing FGS on the exchange using the Player XG tool at bookiebashing.net.